Hey, good morning, guys. It's Simon with Trade and Perform Coaching, doing the live market preview for ES. It's 8:14 a.m. on the 13th of June. I can shorten this up a little bit. Quick legal disclaimer: the webinar is for educational purposes only. It's not a recommendation to buy or sell anything. Equities, futures, and options in currency trading have large potential rewards, but importantly, large potential risks. That means you can lose a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't follow a risk plan, and if you don't have a trade plan with an edge. You must be aware of the risks and be willing to accept them in order to invest in the futures and options markets. Do not trade money you cannot afford to lose. The website is neither a solicitation nor an offer to buy or sell equities or futures or options. No representation is being made that any account will or is likely to achieve the profits or losses similar to those discussed in the channel. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. Always consult your registered financial advisor and your risk trading plan before ever investing or trading any financial instrument. Okay, we got that out of the way. So I want to go to the volume profile to start with. And then, so on the overnight, first of all, the range, importantly, right? 25 to 33, not quite 10 points, 8 points. It's actually a little bit smaller than what we've been having in the overnight sessions, right? Number one. Let me go ahead and repost the link so everyone has it. Okay, there we go. And so that's number one. Ranges come in a little bit. We want to see if we have an expansion in the first hour range. And then additionally, right, we had a pretty big down day, so we're coming right into the 62 retrace. So I would normally say, if we weren't gapping into it, that I would expect rejection out of the white zone right out of the gate, right? So the risks with that is if you trade out of the gate, so that you risk an open drive higher, right, or potential trend day up. And considering, when we come over here and look at ES, and again, I did this in the trade review, but I'll show again. There's just no damage, right? So really the question is the hurdle of what the market can do. Okay, so what's important here is that this HVN should have served and did pseudo serve as support, this 31 to 29 area. Then it shifted a little bit to cover that LVN that's right behind it. So, and then a little volume build right here. So this area really from 30 to 34 should have served as support back on Friday. It didn't completely fail, but it is the point of failure for the day where we broke down. This should serve as generally as resistance, right? And so normally if we hit this area and it wasn't right out of the gate, I'd just be like, hey, I'm short in this location, right? That pushes it all the way up to the extreme edge of aggression because you may be stepping in front of an open drive higher. There may be a lack of counter rotation. We just don't know. And you don't have any of the advantages of having tick or tick divergence. The one thing we will have is the opening print, right? So again, just to address the open, right? If we open, and this is the opening print. And then we either reject off the opening print and backside test, or we have the open print, we drive above, then we get below. I'd look for that backside test if I wanted to short as a potential short. But I'm going to remind you, in ES, this is the last point of launch. This is just going back to the 21st, 22nd, somewhere in there of last month, right? And if you look, it would be normal, right? Normal in a bull market environment for the market to make a 50 retrace of this move. And under the duress of NQ getting pounded to the downside, right, we weren't able to make it back to the 50 retrace, right? To contrast that, if we look at NQ on the daily time frame, okay, here's the point of the last swing low. This pushes, so to give you some contrast, right, this pushes us back to the same date, last push down. Here's the 50-60 retrace, right? That 62, so we blew right past that 50-60 retrace. We did not penetrate the swing low, but we've more than covered that 50 retrace and then that 57.43, which, by the way, Globex high on NQ is 57.44. That's right back to the 62 retrace. So what that tells me is that NQ is more damaged than ES. ES is still in good shape. And my higher odds trades are going to be from attempted pushes down and then rotations back up. Now, the other thing that I'm looking at is pre-market, the dome. Share. Okay. The dome pre-market is showing 229 by 233. That's a healthy pre-market. It has a decent amount of size behind it. The volatility isn't overly high. We want to make sure that, at least I want to make sure that the dome is constantly printing once we open 300-400 on the bid, that the bid is actually filling up and not going to 20 and 30 on the bid. I still think it's dangerous when the bid is very, very thin. This is showing signs of health, which is good. The other thing we want to look for this morning is if the tick is in alignment. I don't expect NQ and ES to still be in alignment. Obviously, NQ is the weaker of the two. I'd be careful on stepping in. It's down a lot. 5,900, trading 57.44, right? This was a blown support level right here. Okay, that 58.09 to 58.22, and I would not be surprised of two things. I wouldn't be surprised to see NQ make a mirror image move up. I wouldn't be surprised to see it push all the way to 58.09. But because we have pushed behind, notice we have not closed behind the 62 retrace. See that? It's very interesting on NQ. We did not close behind the 62 retrace at either point, 57.06. I really think that's going to be the make or break determination. And I do think pushes down, just like it has been in every other market we've traded, right? Pushes down, trap late sellers, and push them back up. And so it's very important to remember not to get bearish in the hole today. So the other trade setups that we're looking for today are, let me insert the tick. We're going to look for something just like this, where we get, as demonstrated yesterday, heavy tick push down, failure to get below a key location on that heavy push down right here. That was Globex low yesterday. We failed to get below it. They pressed really hard on that, okay, and they couldn't get below, and that's when I said yesterday that I would expect they couldn't push lower. If they don't break that swing low right there, don't close below it, shorts are trapped and they're going to push up. But that's exactly what's happened, and it's carried through to the overnight. Right, so we're looking for tick divergence. We're looking for a tick to line up with the price action to some degree. And again, I would expect rejection out of this 24.34 location. If we push beyond that 24.34, that then becomes support on the top side. A break. So we start on this rotation of series down, right? And this was the last swing high. Excuse me, this is the last swing high right here, right? If you kind of went through that was actually broken. I wouldn't count this as broken. So this gets broken here, right? So if you draw this up, it's one of our key setups, right? And you draw the 50-60 back, you should note in your statistics, right? This draws you 50-60 back. And you did get the 2-point rotation. Not only that, but with the appropriate stop. Now, I understand not everyone can afford the stop. But with the appropriate stop, meaning 1 point behind the swing low, right, that trade yielded you an entry at 42.21. It would have given you approximately 3 points worth of heat. And it was worth an extension of 42.27, and then all the overnight up into the white zone, which was our upside target for the extension higher, right? So we know range is contracted a little bit. We know NQ is pushing back up right to its 62 retrace. And we know that the damage in ES was not anywhere near what the damage in NQ was, but the vertical move in NQ has been much more extreme. And I think the market's trying to figure out whether it's bearish or not. And I'll remind you again, there is no driver to the downside. As far as I know, and no one's come up with one for me yet, where there's been a break in, there hasn't been an earnings miss anywhere outside of the retail sector. There hasn't been a fundamental shift in news. I guess you could cite oil, but the market hasn't cared about oil for a long time. So usually the market, in order to have a continued driver, actually needs evidence. I understand that the technicals will often set up prior, and that's fine. We'll keep monitoring it. If we were to break below yesterday's lows on NQ. Obviously, huge warning sign, right? And as a matter of fact, on NQ, on both obviously the low on ES. So yesterday was a down day, right? So a push above into the white zone, a trap back below Monday's high would indicate a potential trip back to Monday's low, and we still have not retested this key location 2412, 2410, which I'm still a responsive buyer at, and then again 2405 to 2403, 2406 to 2403, let's call it in general. I'm a responsive buyer here as well. I'm keen off of 10-point rotations because they've been working, and I'm looking for heavy tick pushes up without confirmation in price, and vice versa. Just like we got here where we had a push up, right? We had a push up, and then we had another, see how we had tick divergence right through here into the high yesterday? I'm looking for tick divergence on the 5-minute. I expect rollovers. It's still, as Bill's pointing out, in order to get a reasonable expectation on the shorts, it's taking an average of an hour to get the move. Much longer than it is to take the response to the upside. I still think the short side's the most aggressive end. So I'm going to watch again. I don't think there's much else to discuss until we see the PA set up for the day. I'd just be careful of being bearish when there's been no damage, right? There's been damage on, if anywhere, on NQ. And then on NQ, 20-point rotations have been pretty standard. So trade plan same as yesterday. Look to see if NQ's lining, if the tick's lining up. Key 10-point rotations. The best trade still historically, statistically set up after the first hour. Okay, I have that from a P&L standpoint and from a just a long history of data in almost every market. The best trades set up after the first hour, the most aggressive ones in the first hour. If you can keep your head, there's nothing wrong with trading in the first hour, but I want to see what the market wants to. I want to see what the market is going to tell me to do, and then I'll make my trading decisions. Right. So anyways, I'm going to refill my coffee right before the open. I'll pause this right here. I did want to do one last thing before I jump. Where is it? It's got to be here. Okay. Value shifted lower yesterday on ES from 24-hour perspective. It shifted up today. The key area is getting below this 29, right? But then you have to get below this 24 to 21 level, which is where the white zone is hiding out, in order to be bearish. Underneath that opens this up for this target down here to 12. Okay, so I want to show that. We're into this all the way up to 34, maybe even a little bit past it. We're into resistance. Then the support's going to come in at 24.21. That's the first place I'm looking to be a responsive buyer. And then I'm heavy on the responses down in these areas, 05 to 03. It's just lining up that way, and the market's being very responsive to the TPO and the volume profile for that matter. But that 24.21, we have to get back below that to have any chance at scaling down, and I expect responsive buyers the first time lower. I'm not bearish. Okay, so on the other hand, I'm not bullish, meaning I don't think we have to rush to buy open gaps and chase after it. So I'll be back in just a few minutes, guys. I'm going to pause this. I want to record the open so I can look back at it and see if I catch anything developing there. I'll talk to you in just 1 minute. Thank you. Okay, so if you look at Sunday evening, I'm just going to go to a 15-minute chart to get the time frame better. Okay, so you're going to see this is where we opened Sunday night, and you'll see this 57.40, 37 to 57.49. Okay, so that was overnight, became overnight resistance. We rejected out of there, drove through. So key for NQ today is going to be getting underneath where they tried to hold it in early Asia, right? And where they rejected it, you can see when we pushed right up against that 57.37 on London Open and then rolled it over. And then again last night in London, right back to that same area. So again, I would expect a test of that location to get a some kind of response back up for an attempt to hold. If we blast through there in the backside test, and again, the only reason I mention that is look, if NQ doesn't roll over, why is ES going to roll over now? ES couldn't go down when the thing was weak, right? Why is it going to go down now when it's no longer weak? So this is the test area. Again, you see backside tests into that area. I would use those if I was aggressive on NQ. For short, again, this 51 to 37 area is going to be really key here. This was back into that Sunday evening on the backside test. We'll keep that up for later appearances. And again, 57, 46, 47. Keep in mind, ES did attempt to hold its opening print. My guess is NQ will make an attempt too. It's a very common trade. And again, tick is kind of disconnected from the market to a certain degree there. So let's move all this over to the left so we can see the bars a little more clearly. Again, we don't make it back over 34. The logical answer is to pull back down and fill the gap. And then he's pointing out that also the 50, well, from Globex low, the 50-60 back. Okay, so Thomas, realize if you're trading that, you're in the middle. It's unauctioned, right? So just keep in mind it could easily slip through there, and you're below the opening print. And I don't have all I have is Monday's high there, but there was no volume build, which is what I usually want to take a trade. So I'd be a little hesitant there unless I got tick divergence. Ah, I see. That's a really aggressive draw from Globex for me, Thomas, especially on ES. And I like volume to back me up. That's fine. The trade may work for a scalp. There's no issue there, but it's just not one of my areas. Again, we're pushing back up into this HVN location, and it's going to be critical that it gets above that backside test in order to continue higher. Again, there's no damage on ES. So, again, aggressive shorts. If you're aggressive here, you can be aggressive here. You barely got ticked out if you used exactly a 2-point stop here the last time. Again, your stop would still be the same location. This is the backside test of that Sunday night Globex high area on ES. Again, I'm not bearish on ES, so I'm looking for areas to get long. And again, tick's not quite working again today. I think the whole market's just looking at going, we don't know. I can promise you this was a short squeeze from, I saw so much bearish talk on NQ over the weekend and how it was going to zero. We'll remove this. We've got to get underneath, and also understand if you punch back in here, you're underneath the 62 retrace, you're underneath the white zone, you're underneath volume, underneath all of this area, right? So right now they're trying to hold it because there's actually volume sitting right here. See how it's just grinding through here? What I really wanted was that I would have preferred to open, pop in, and push down, but we didn't get that, right? And that's mainly because there's so many shorts on NQ that they were all forced in this morning, as you can see, and they're now paying for it. And then, again, weak hands came in late, and we still haven't had a proper trade setup, right? Let's go through that. Rotation size. 36 is the high. Bits 26, which would put this Globex low, Monday's volume point of control, this whole white zone area into play, which I would agree with, and I'd be looking long. Again, no 10-point rotation up, pseudo open drive higher, but the tick didn't match open drive higher, and then you know that this is just pure unadulterated squeeze. The other thing about that people get really wrong in the market is when a market turns bearish, they simply assume that it's going to go straight down, right? That's, people are binary in their thinking. Remember, it trades two ways, right? NQ could still have significant damage and still roll to the downside. It didn't make it back to its 50 retrace yet. Okay? So, as traders, we just want to stay in the flow of the market and do what the market is telling us to do. We want to see pushes at low on tick, right? So if we were here and we got a huge tick down and it didn't break the low, yeah, I'd say we're going to pop back to the upside. If we get a big push up this way, okay, and fails, doesn't get cooperating tick, yeah, I'm going to look for a short to the downside. And in the meantime, people are getting really beat up on NQ trying to force that short, right? And it's enough to cause significant damage. That is a trap below Globex high, and it's a trap back into the 34 area. What I'd really like to see, because we have the volume build here. Okay, so this is a little tricky. You'll see that we opened up and pushed into, we have a double distribution here on the TPO, right? And now we have this volume build here at 29, right? So what I would expect to happen is if we push back down, come back and backside test this, push down, and then maybe push back up. I'd expect balance on this, right? After such a big day, it looks like we're balancing. You'll notice that we haven't broke. The other picture that's clear here is we haven't broke. We haven't broke anywhere, so it is a trap, and I do think that 33. I think ES was shortable out of this area. We pushed a little bit behind it, right? So I do think ES was shortable out of this area, but you've got to get underneath this time build that we have on the TPO, right? And then you have to get underneath this overnight time build. If you look at that on the day time frame, right, you'll see there's really not a lot here, that we're just at the top of the old value area high, right? But what we got to get below, so see how this auctioned over this area yesterday, almost all of it, so it was easy to push, right? It was easy to push through this. You know, this is wrong. Let's refresh this. There we go. It was easy to push through this area, so I'd expect a revisit. So someone's going to try to use this as support. That's what they did overnight. So they use this value area high. That's that 28, 29 area that they used to support overnight, right? So then this is the area, that 22 to 20, where I expect response to buy, right? And so yes, the answer to your question is, but the true resistance from the day time frame is at 40.42 also. So I don't have a clear picture yet, and that's why I'm hoping for I'm hoping the tick will give me a clue. And what I'd like to see is a push and tick without a new high and tick without a new push and high. And then also remember the other big challenge I have. Mari asked if we were trapped below Globex low, which we were a second ago, right? The challenge I have here, and there's the backside test, that 57.46, as long as that holds, that should push us back up to another test of this 57.60, and possibly this 57.76 location. The other problem I have with shorting ES is that it's not the weaker of the two. It's actually the stronger of the two. There's no damage there. So again, yes, Mari, if you're aggressive on the short, this is the area to be shorting. I'm waiting to see if I can't get some kind of setup, and I prefer a long side setup in ES versus a short side setup. And I still haven't had, our entire range for the day is 32 to 36. It's 4 points, right? So we're having a contraction in range on a Tuesday where normally we would have an expansion. The first hour range yesterday was 27 to 16, almost 10 points, right? So to me, that signals that if I have conviction on the short and I'm willing to take the stop at the high of the day, that's what you have to do to take that short there, right? And that's fine. Just falls under aggressive. But I don't have anything else telling me to short there besides just pure location. And I have a smaller range than I had yesterday morning. And I had ES unable to break down when NQ broke down horribly. All of that means I just simply want a clear setup. That's all. And that clear setup may be, hey, I'm willing to take the stop at the high of the day, which is fine. But I still think everyone's trying to figure out what the heck's going on, quite frankly. NQ's not rolling over. You know the bears are suffering there. And I'm just watching for now too. I haven't touched a thing. And think, what are most people thinking? Most people are thinking gap fill on both of these, right? I know I would be, right? And what's the market showing, right? We haven't had one five-minute bar close at plus or minus 600, right? So remember, when we get that, if you don't get the bars actually closing at plus or minus 500 or 600, you're susceptible to a random move up or down until that occurs. So that's my 2 cents on that. I would have thought NQ could have gotten below 57.46.50. That would really be my tell, and I would use positive ticks on pushes back up to look for shorts in both locations. Right now, you know, in NQ, bears need this below the opening print. So they're desperate to get that, or they're going to be forced to cover, right? And the logical target, Bill's right, is 57.76. So these guys need a gap fill. Anyone who shorted below Globex Open Sunday evening is trapped on NQ right now. They're going to want that below the opening print. They just got it. They're going to want it to stay below that opening print. And there's the response of buyers right at it. And those buyers right there, those are shorts who shorted out of the gate, who were patient enough to wait for the retest of that open. They're going, thank you, I will cover. And now we'll see, what we want to see is if OTF steps back in and starts driving lower. Tick is predominantly also negative here. A lot of input. So Ron took a half-size speculative short at 34. Just so you know, he took that at 9.14. Nice job, Ian. Yeah, and then Ian points out if you took 24.34, you've been in the trade for 35 minutes, right? And you've been one tick to the stop if you're using 2 points on the back of the zone. When you said, so OTF, okay, I got it. And then Bill has a great point. Tomorrow's Fed day, right? And we have an interest rate decision. So OTF will probably not be playing today. Keep that in mind as well. It's going to be hard to get a directional move without OTF, which is great. That means if we can get the tick to line up with the broader market, right, our normal trade setup should work. Let's pause this. I think that's quite long enough. Again, shorts covered. Very interesting.